guys, welcome back to Coffee with Megan. In this episode, I chat to Natalie Glaze. Natalie is the co-founder of an incredibly successful and beautiful sustainable swim line. And her co-founder Zanna were just mentioned in the Forbes 30 under 30 list. So I was very excited to figure out what aided their success so quickly and so young. Their swimwear is made at a zero waste factory in London from ocean plastic. So I found this really interesting to chat to her about exactly what this fabric is, how they found it, and how they keep their factory zero waste and what this means in their process. I really love in this episode how I find out that direct customer feedback from their audience online was really what aided their success. It's super cool how they use social media and feedback from their audience to create a swim line from kind of nothing. They started their Instagram way before they even had swimwear available. And it really took people along the journey with them and created a really loyal audience. So I think what you'll get out of this episode is some tips and tricks into creating that audience and using social media to create a brand. But also you just hear from Natalie exactly how you have to be open to learning. A lot of this was a learning process for them, a lot of trial and error, a lot of maybe mistakes made along the way to learn to exactly figure out how to make this brand what they wanted. And I think that's really beautiful, that it's a huge learning journey. I think you'll learn in this episode some of those mistakes, and maybe you can take that into your own brand, and lots of tips on how to make a sustainable brand. So I hope you enjoy. Hi, Natalie, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited to speak to you. You are super, super inspiring to me with what you've done. You are only 29. You are the co-founder of your own brand, Stay Wild Swim, which is incredible. And you only launched it just over 2 years ago. You also have launched a sustainable jewelry line called By Glaze, which I'm so excited to chat about later. And you just made it onto Forbes 30 under 30, which, I mean, that has to be such an incredible feeling.
I kind of feel like it hasn't really sunk in. I'm a bit like, is that real? Like when it came out, I kept checking it, being like, am I actually on that list?
About it. Yeah. No, I mean, congratulations firstly, because that's such an achievement, and I would love to talk about it a little bit later on. But just to give everyone some background on you and your journey, let's start right at the beginning. The how, what, where was the beginning of your journey with sustainable fashion, and what was the evolution of co-founding your brand Stay Wild Swim?
Oh, that is a big question, isn't it? It's like, where to start?
Where did it start?
I think probably, so to kind of go back to my kind of background, which probably links into Stay Wild a little bit. So I was working in media. That's how my kind of career started. And I kind of, that was when like blogging and Instagram were first coming about. So I was in a job that I was really unhappy with, and I started a blog because I was like, maybe this can be my online CV. I always wanted to work in fashion, so I kind of started writing, doing a lot more journalism, PR, and then started kind of an Instagram, which is how I met my co-founder. We met at some event. I think we were doing like fitness blogging, probably drinking like green juice somewhere, very cliche. And we actually ended up going on a fitness retreat together, and they put us in a room. And we bonded. Yeah, we didn't really know each other. They put us in a room together, and we bonded from there and kind of kept in touch. We both kind of went on our separate career journeys. Both kind of sustainability kind of came into both our lives and became more important to us separately, which I think is quite a good thing, that we were both learning about it, talking about it online. I'd left my job at this point and was doing a bit of freelance everything. And obviously working in the fashion world, you kind of like doing PR, I was becoming more and more aware of like the impact of kind of fast fashion, and then learning about sustainability. And me and Zanna, I think we kept in contact because we had lots of mutual interests. And I don't even know when the kind of penny dropped. I think sustainability had always been something. Like, I grew up around nature. My parents are very into the ocean. And as someone who, if you're swimming in the ocean lots, you're becoming more and more aware of how much plastic was in the ocean.
Definitely.
So I think me and Zanna we started talking lots about that. And then I basically had an idea, and I was like, I heard about the material that you could make trainers. I actually heard about Adidas. You heard you could make trainers from ocean plastic, and I was like, that's a really cool idea. I wonder if you can make swimwear. So I started researching, putting all the ideas into a document. I was like, this could really go somewhere. And then basically found it all quite overwhelming. I was like, how do I start a fashion brand? I don't have enough background, but like, this is a cool concept. So I kind of sat on it, and then Zanna did a tweet saying, I would love to start a brand using ocean plastic, because, you know, she was talking more and more about sustainability. So then I messaged her, I basically slid into her DMs on Twitter and was like, hey, so we should catch up over brunch. And also I saw your tweet, like maybe I could help you because I've actually got a bit of research on this. Like, feel free to ask me some questions, I can send you it. So we caught up over brunch. And little did she know that I basically pulled together a whole pitch, because I was like, two of us would be great. And I knew her and we were friends. So I basically went for brunch and like kind of pitched an idea for sustainable swimwear, knowing that she had a passion for sustainability. And the idea kind of blossomed from that. It started off as a conversation. She was like, that's really cool. That's something that I would love to do. Let's start researching. Let's kind of get the ball rolling, see if this is something we actually want to do. And I really feel like it basically snowballed from there.
Yeah.
There was never an official moment where we were like, let's start a business together. It was more, let's do a bit of research. Okay, well, why don't we set up an Instagram page, see if anyone would be interested?
Yeah.
We set up an Instagram page and said, look, we're thinking about launching swimwear made from recycled ocean plastic. Would anyone be interested? Not really thinking anyone would be. And then suddenly everyone was like, yes, when's the launch? When's the launch date? And we were like, oh gosh, we've got to do it now. And then and then suddenly it's 2.5 years later. And I feel like the last 2.5 years have been a bit of a blur of just learning really quickly on the job. Like none of us have any experience of fashion. So it's been like, it's almost like we've been thrown in at the deep end, and just had to learn very quickly. And it's been incredible. But that's kind of, long story short, of how we kind of came up with the idea to kind of, and it just,
I mean, I love that. I love that you had the idea and you kind of just went with the flow of how things happen and it all falls into place. Sometimes I think people maybe have an idea and they're like, I can't do it, and then they'll just give up too quickly, but you kind of waited for the opportunity and moved into the market when it, and I mean, you've obviously done an incredible job, as we'll speak about later. One of my questions was actually about the material you use, and what exactly I wrote was, did you find EcoNil first, or did you want to make a swim brand and then looked for the material? But as you said, you heard about the material and then you thought about what could be done with it. And it's a really interesting material. If you could tell us a little bit more about, so you say it's made from ocean plastic, isn't that right?
Yeah. So basically, obviously the issue of ocean plastic is huge. And as you're learning more and more about it, we found out about the trainers that were made from ocean plastic, did a bit of digging, found out about EcoNil, which is the kind of yarn that those trainers were made from, did some research, because to me, I was like, swimwear is something that I've always loved. And it's such a lovely narrative to be able to take ocean plastic out of the ocean, turn it into this like beautiful piece of swimwear, which you can then like swim in the ocean. So that idea made me, I was like, that's amazing. Like, I love that story. I love that narrative. So we kind of started doing research, and we spoke to the guys at EcoNil. So they are based in Italy, and they do all the development there. So they basically have like teams of fishermen, divers, go out, collect the ocean plastic. So it's kind of like ocean plastic bottles, but also like recycled fishing nets, which obviously are in the oceans as well, and a huge problem as well. And they take it back to their factory. It's broken down to the original fiber and then respun into a yarn, which can be used in swimwear. It can be used in multiple things, like even carpets. Like, there's so many uses for it, actually. Brilliant. And then we did lots of research on the functionality, and actually it's so functional as swimwear. It's really good in terms of as a functional material, because we wanted it to actually last. We wanted it to be able to be worn in water, to have it feels exactly the same as swimwear material. So when we were getting samples, we're like, actually, this will not only create sustainable swimwear, but also beautiful pieces that will be functional, that will last long, and be like good high quality pieces. So that's kind of where the journey of the material came from.
Yeah, no, that's amazing to hear that, you can still have a swimwear where, I mean, it's just a positive that it's made of ocean plastic. It's already a beautiful piece of swimwear. No, I really love the story of it coming out of the ocean and being made into something else. And is the emissions made from respinning it and making reducing it back to its natural fibers is still a lot less than the emissions from just a new.
I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but the figures are actually crazy. Like the amount of kind of carbon emissions it takes to create the Econile swimsuit as opposed to like a virgin nylon yarn is something like, it's like a lot less. Like, I don't want to throw
on your website. I know.
That is completely inaccurate.
Exactly.
It's better.
No, it is amazing. And what I love as well is you are keeping sustainably conscious down to even the liners in your swimwear. Could you tell us about that material? And also, I would love to hear about the material you're using for your new intimates line as well.
Yeah, I think for us, when we first launched, we were like, we want to be a sustainable swimwear brand. And I think it's very easy just to like stop at material. So you can use a sustainable material, but actually there's so many elements that go into our brand. And actually we wanted to make sure at every stage we were making a decision which we felt happy about. And we were using material that we were like, okay, that is a good material. So for us, it was like just as important, the small details mattered. So it was important that like the packaging was recyclable. It was important that the thread we used is made from recycled plastic bottles, and even down to the hygiene liners, which when we launched, just before we launched, someone was like, what are you doing about hygiene liners? And I was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, so you legally can't sell swimwear without a hygiene liner. And I just was like, oh yeah, duh.
Even think about it.
And they're all made from plastic. So we were searching for ones which weren't made from plastic. So I was like, can't really launch a sustainable brand and then be like have a big slab of plastic stuck to the bottom. So then we found a material which is actually made from tree pulp. So it's like purely plant, and it has the same, it kind of feels like plastic. It feels like a plastic sheeting kind of sticky material, a bit like a hygiene liner would. So you can't really tell the difference, but it's like compostable. And for us, it was, I mean, it's so crazy because it's like, it took so much research. I think it pushed back our launch by maybe 2 months of just researching and searching. And it's like the most expensive hygiene liners in the whole planet because it's like the only company that does them. So obviously they can charge what they like. But for us, it was important that every stage of what we did, we were trying to make as most conscious choice as possible with the material. And then, as you mentioned, we launched a essentials range. So obviously COVID happened and we were like, right, we're a very seasonal brand. We are holidays, warm weather. So we started doing lots of research at the beginning of lockdown of like, how do we kind of make sure the brand is future proofed in case something like this happens again. And also like we had no idea how long the lockdowns would last or what the state of kind of travel and holidays would be. So we thought, okay, let's, like for us, we were getting loads of feedback of people saying, I wear your swimwear around the house, or I wear your bikini as like a top and I just wear it around. So we were like, we could maybe launch underwear. So we basically spent a while researching again fabric, and we wanted to use, so swimwear fabric is a little bit less breathable, so it wouldn't have worked as like an everyday piece. So we started lots of research, and we found Tencel, which is, for us, was a really good material because it's not only is it sustainable, it has like, it's got amazing qualities in terms of breathability. Like for us, it was very important that it was breathable, and it also is cool to the touch. So when it's against your skin, it stays very cool. It's very silky, kind of has that like barely there, like you're not really wearing anything, but you are kind of feel to it. And I think for us, like I said before, sustainability is crucial and the core of our brand, but everything also has to be functional. Like it has to be a nice piece. People have to want to buy it, and you want people to buy it because they love the piece. And some people might buy it because they don't actually care that much about sustainability, but they're making that choice because they like the piece. So every material, it has to have a functional element. I
think that's really important. Just interjecting, because it also gets people who aren't as conscious to buy it in spite of that, just because it's beautiful pieces. So I think it's really important for designers to be doing that, to get everyone just making that choice anyway. And
yeah, exactly.
But I'll just let you carry on, because what is that material made out of?
So it's made from sustainable wood pulp,
Oh.
and it actually is certified biodegradable and compostable as well. And it has like a really small carbon footprint as a material. So for us, we did a lot of research, and we looked at kind of like organic cotton. We looked at lots of different versions, and we thought, what material out of all these has the least impact in terms of like carbon emissions, least impact on the planet, and is also functional as well at the same time. So Tencel kind of ticked all the boxes for what we were looking for, because it kind of had everything, and it's such a lovely fabric, and it has a really nice story, and it's also, for us, was the most sustainable option out there.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. I actually haven't heard of that material before even, so that's quite an exciting space to be in.
I have a feeling, I mean, I don't know how new it is, but I know that it wasn't being used as much, and then more and more people are finding out about it. I think as sustainability grows and as sustainability becomes more mainstream, people are finding out more of these materials, and they're getting put into kind of more and more brands, and it's a fantastic material. And again, it's like that thing of, if it is that good and functional, it's more and more brands will use it, because it's that, why not? It's good for the planet, and also it's a great material.
Yep. I just hope, and I guess it will hopefully go that way with the more brands taking the choices to use it, but then hopefully costs, because of course there is the conversation that sustainable fashion right now still has a higher price tag.
Yeah, of course.
Because it has to. It's as you say, the materials are a bit harder and there's less people using them. So, but hopefully, as more brands are using them, maybe the price will come down on them a little bit. But we shall see in the future.
We shall see. I suppose it's such a hard, it's like not a hard conversation, but it's one of those conversations, because I suppose we've all grown up with like Primark and H&M, and we're also used to those costs and those prices, and like it's so kind of ingrained in us as a society of like, that's how much a t-shirt costs to make. And then like obviously sustainable fashion, we make our pieces in London, so of course our price point is gonna be a lot higher than like if it's made in a sweatshop, so it's kind of that balance. And as sustainability gets more mainstream, maybe the materials will cost less, because currently it's such a high price point compared to, like, I think fashion, a lot of the industry is built around kind of a higher turnover of styles and like material that doesn't necessarily last as long, because it's more about as many pieces. So it's like that balance. I think it will become more accessible, but it also is like that pricing has to also then reflect ethical production and
reflect the fact that, I mean, I know, especially me changing my buying habits, when I buy a t-shirt from some of those, I'm not going to name any names, some of those high street brands, I really wear it a few times and it just doesn't look as good. And I spend money on a really good t-shirt, or a really good, that it's made from a sustainable, conscious, good material, and it really lasts the test of time. So in the end, I actually feel I'm not wasting as much money, but it's just a super hard thing to change people's buying habits and make people understand that until they try it. But hopefully more and more, where everyone's becoming more aware, and as we say, we might be able to find ways to get price points down so it's more available to people. Something else I wanted to talk about was, on your website you speak a lot about it being a slower fashion process. And what is it you mean by that, and what goes into it being a slower fashion process?
So for us, we've always kind of, our messaging has always been around a bit like kind of linking to what we've just talked about, buying less pieces, but buying better quality. Like, we're not pushing buy millions of our styles. It's like buy less stuff, but actually buy better quality pieces, and they'll actually last you longer. And I think for us, it's like a few different strands of slow fashion. So one, it's about like the kind of messaging you put out as a brand. Two is about making sure that they're made to last. Like, our swimwear is made to last you years and years and years, and like we have people who bought at the very beginning and they're like, it still looks just as good as new, and they wear it every day swimming in the ocean. And I think for us, it's about making sure that the pieces are as higher quality as possible. And then when we launched, a bit of this was naivety, but actually like having no idea how fashion worked. Like, we've never done seasons. We've never done like multiple collections. Like we launched 2 years ago and we've only ever launched one collection of swimwear. And I think for us, we made the conscious decision that we didn't want to be kind of dropping loads and loads of collections and then having like wastage. So for us, it was about, let's build a really beautiful core collection and be able to kind of add to that. So we're about to launch our second collection of swim, but that's like the first collection in 2 years. And actually, if you look at the collection calendar of like a standard fashion brand, they can launch up to 52 collections a year. And that's obviously, it's so much stuff. And for us, it's like trying to minimize wastage, I suppose. Like we don't want to just throw out millions of styles and not like have just loads of stock, you know? So I think for us, it was like, let's be a bit slower, more considerate about how we put out our pieces, and like making sure that our collection we're building it kind of slowly and surely, and like adding where we see there to be gaps and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a kind of slower, more conscious. And then we also do, so last year we introduced pre-orders, which is we shoot our collection and then we do a pre-order way of launching a product. So people then buy and then we basically are making it to order. Wow. So then there's less, we know kind of who's buying, we know how many pieces to make, because otherwise it can be a bit of a stab in the dark. You're a bit like, how many people buy this color? How many people buy this color? I'm not really sure, let's guess. Whereas if you do pre-orders, you're actually going off like data of who's actually buying. So that allows us to be a bit more understanding our audience and making sure we don't have any wastage, you know?
No, I really like that. And I also think the fashion industry has got to a point where I definitely know, working in it has just become crazy, where you can't even put the time into the collections they've produced to really tailor them, to make them perfect, to make the imagery perfect, because everything's just turning over so quick. And I really like the idea of slowing it down and just finding out what the consumer really wants. And I also think it's changing consumers' mindset, that you don't need to keep changing your style. You can buy really well-made pieces that you love. And it's a hard conversation because it's not where the world is right now, but I hope, I like that idea. And is it right in saying that you got into Selfridges within just 6 weeks of launching? Is that right?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, I'm not, so many mad stories. I still feel like this whole journey's been a bit crazy, and I'm just a bit like, what?
Yeah, when you look back. I wanted to ask, what were your emotions when that happened? Was it scared? Was it excited? And how do you keep your ethos of slow fashion when you are going to big retailers like that? And just what was the process of getting in there?
So as I mentioned before, we launched Instagram first, which is, I mean, it was actually the best decision ever, but it's like a bit of a backwards way. We like put out the brand to the world, talked about it, but we didn't have any images. We were just talking about like our plans and ideas. And then I got an email, and the first year of the business, I had a part-time job doing consultancy. And I remember I was sitting in their office and I got an email through. It's like, Selfridges, bright new things. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to stock Stay Wild. And I was like,
what?
I was like, this is not real. And then I remember screenshotting it and sending it to Zanna, like, read your emails. You must read it. And I was literally like there, like hyperventilating at my desk. I was like, I need to leave. So I just like left the room, and I like went to get a coffee or something. And I was like, this is not real. I think because when we launched, we kind of didn't really have any, we always said from the beginning, let's launch the business. And like, you know, it doesn't matter if it doesn't take off, like if it lasts like a few weeks, it lasts 6 months, like we just want to do something, we want to be proud of it, and like let's not put too much pressure on ourselves. So I think when that came through, it just all felt a bit real, but we didn't actually have any product. So so we went in and had a meeting, and we were like, we haven't got any product, we haven't got a collection, like we're starting to like get some samples together. And we actually like signed to go in their bright new things as their swimwear brand, and they hadn't seen any pieces. I was like, this is so much trust. What if they're so bad? Like, we did. So we went with their bright new thing because, for multiple reasons, Selfridges as a big store, although obviously they are a huge store, and there's like a kind of for us it was they are probably the best out of all the retailers in terms of like championing sustainability. They've always tried to push boundaries, and their Bright New Things is a collection where they support young designers and give them a platform and kind of almost mentor you for like a year or 2 years and talk about your brand, your ethos. And we were very clear from the beginning, and I think this is coming back to your question of how did you balance that. From the beginning we were like, we are not going to be dropping lots of collections, because I think when you're going into a big store like that, there's a kind of from their side wanting you to drop collections when they drop collections. So we were like, we're slow fashion, we're just going to do this collection for the next year, and that's kind of how we roll, and we're not going to be like dropping millions of styles and millions of colors. Like this is our ethos and this is what we want to stick to. And they were very supportive, and they were like, yeah, that's why we're working with you, we're working with you for what you're doing. So I think that was really, and it was really good. And I think for us as such a small brand, we did so many kind of really great marketing things with them where we talked about our ethos, we talked about like our brand and what we were doing, what we were trying to achieve. So like being able to get our message out, and I think especially they have a global audience. For us at the beginning of our journey, it was a great leg up to be able to reach all these other people, be able to tell them the story of our brand and what we wanted to do. So I think for us it was such a great opportunity to like basically elevate Stay Wild onto more of a global platform that's a bit more, and it gives you a bit more kudos we were so young as a brand. So I think okay, they're a bit more legit, and we were able to talk to a lot more people about our kind of business and our products and what we wanted to do.
Yeah, no, it's very true. It's unfortunate, but sometimes when you're starting a business, there's a lot of, you might not always get the support where people are like, oh, them, just another swimwear brand or something. But when people get a name behind you, it can really help keep
it kind of makes people take you seriously, which you shouldn't be. But like when we first launched, I think people were like, oh, cute. Yeah. This swimwear brand. And like and I think as soon as we went to Selfridges, people were like, oh, okay.
How good does it feel though to prove people wrong?
Yeah, it did feel quite good.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, because that's one of the fears of, well, I definitely had when me and my boyfriend then started Who Knew. It's like, it is a fear at first where you're like, wait, people aren't taking us seriously. Do we take ourselves seriously? Do we keep? And it's really amazing to just see those outcomes sometimes and just give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah, I think you can also but that's why lots of people will hold themselves back from launching a business, because they're worried about what other people think, or whether people would take them seriously, or they're like, oh, I haven't got any background in this, so I probably shouldn't really be doing it, and you can have those conversations with yourself so much, and then you can talk yourself out of doing something. 100%. So yeah, I'm glad we did it. And I think probably having a business partner, having someone else to be like, yeah, no, we should do it, like it kind of, I think I would have been a lot more scared if it was just me.
Yeah, 100%. And I really love how you stuck to your ethos with going into Selfridges, which could be scary. People could be just like, I'm going to do whatever you guys say. But you were like, we're a slow fashion brand. And something else you've had from the beginning is really the way you are for women of all different sizes, all different shapes, all different ethnicities. And I really love that. And I know it's really important to your brand. And how do you go about finding the women you want to shoot? How do you go about casting? What does that look like for you? And what are you looking for?
So since we launched, when we launched, we were like, right, we need to obviously shoot these pieces. And for us, it was like, it's quite funny because it's become such a big part of our brand. But when we decided to shoot, it wasn't really like, it was like, well, of course we'll showcase it on multiple bodies and different like shapes and sizes and stuff like that, because like they're the women who are going to be wearing the pieces. So we wanted to make sure that they were wearing it. And then it was just, again, I was like, how do you find models? Like, what do you do? I was like, oh, I've never planned a shoot before. So we were like, let's just put it out on social media and let's do an open casting call. So just before our first shoot, we did an open casting call on social media and just said like, come get involved in our shoot, send your applications in, send some pictures. And it went mental. We had, I think we had 800 applications in like 24 hours. And we were like going through all these girls, and all of the girls and pretty much most of our shoots have been from open casting calls. So we kept that up, and we've done, I think, 3 others since then. So we just put it out and just say like, any woman, you don't have to have any modeling background, just come and do the shoot with us. And lots of the girls which we shot with at the beginning, we've used multiple times, because it's almost like they become part of the little swimwear family, and we love working with them. And it's just really, I love all of the girls that we've shot with. So we'll make sure, obviously there's no way that we've covered every single like shape, size, whatever, but for us it's very important that like each shoot we bring in different women, and we're making sure that we're trying to showcase as many, because I think also it's like, who's buying your pieces? They go onto the website, they want to be able to see what that piece is going to look like on them. So for us it was important that we showcase like, yeah, a variety of women, so you can then, I think it just makes shopping easier actually. If you're looking somewhere and you go, okay, right, I know I'm a size 18, I want to look how this is going to look for me, and then another girl's like, okay, I'm a size 14, that girl's a size 14, so that will probably look similar to how it looks on me. And like, just obviously over the last year through the pandemic and stuff, we haven't been able to shoot, so we then did our underwear shoot, which was amazing, because then we were able to like bring in more women, and we worked with some really incredible women, and like we make sure that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can be like in your 70s, you can be like any age. And like, for us it's just more about like the women that are wearing the pieces and showcasing them and their personalities and how they wear it.
No, I think it's really beautiful, the imagery you have, and there's really a beautiful story that you can feel behind it. And I definitely think every brand is having to be more authentic. I'm definitely seeing that in the industry. But it really feels like just the heart of your brand, and you can see how it's grown with that. And I wanted to ask as well, with different sizing, and is that something you had to learn when you were looking into designing? And how does that design process go for you? Do you use fit models? How do you find out what it is the customer wants from a piece?
In terms of sizing and fitting, it's really been like, again, learning curve. So when we started, we had no idea about any of the fit process. Like, we turned up to the factory with hand-drawn drawings, and we're like, here's our swimwear we would like to make. And they were like, I think they probably were having like such a laugh about us, just being like, yeah, cute, but that's not how it works. And we didn't really know about the fitting process. So our first we basically went out with 2 styles and tested them on the audience. And I tested them in terms of like, got feedback. And I definitely think it's been like, we then got feedback from everyone, and then we learned very quickly that actually fitting, because I think when we started, our factory was like a standard to fit on one model, and then you just a thing called grading, so you then grade up to the different sizes. So we just did that. But then very early on we realized that actually it doesn't really make sense to only fit on one model. You have to fit on multiple women's bodies, and then get feedback of how that fits. And obviously you then have to adjust how it fits on the different bodies, depending on, I don't know, as certain sizes you'll need a lot more coverage around the chest, cover the boobs and stuff, and like everyone's bodies are slightly different. So now we have such a thorough fitting process. Like, we fit on like up to 4 or 5 models of different sizes, and we fit at least 3-4 times on everyone, and we get them to test them. Like, so our underwear, we shot on like, I think we did our fitting on 4 models in the factory across like 4 different fittings, and then we had like 3 other girls wearing them, testing them, videoing them at home, sending us feedback. And I think now I know how important, obviously I knew how important fit was, but I now know how important it is to get that process right, to make sure the pieces actually fit well. And I think that's something that we are really, really hot on, is making sure we fit on enough bodies, making sure we get the right amount of feedback. We didn't know that's what you had to do when we first launched. And I think it was just luck. Like, luckily our pieces fitted well when we first launched, but a lot of that was just pot luck of just, we didn't really know what we were doing, and we put these pieces out in the world, and luckily they were fine. But as our pieces have progressed and our brand has progressed, we've like learned a lot more about the whole fitting and grading and factory process. So now, but it is still standard to only fit on one model who's like a sample size. That's the standard of like most fashion brands. So for us, it's like, it's a lot more timely and expensive process to fit on multiple models, multiple women. But it's like one of those things, like for our underwear, it took us nearly 9 months to develop everything from like kind of first sample, because I was like, we're not going to go out with pieces unless we're 100% happy that they're actually going to fit. And like, especially like if you're a curvier lady and you've got a lot bigger boobs, we had to do a lot of like kind of adjusting the coverage to make sure it actually fits, because you want to feel good in underwear and swim. Like, it's not like, so say you're wearing a t-shirt, you can kind of have it a little bit baggy, a little bit less baggy. It depends on how you like to wear it. But swimwear and underwear is so fitted to your body, and it's so like, you want to feel incredible in it. And if it's digging in or not fitting quite right, it doesn't make you feel confident, and you don't want to wear those pieces.
No, I 100% agree with that.
Lots of fitting, basically. We have a load of women we use on all the fits who are incredible, and they give us really honest feedback, and like, we'll try on a bra and they'll be like, absolutely not enough coverage, and then we have to like adjust it all, and then we have to fit it again. But I think it's good to have these women wear them around, and like kind of make sure that they actually are going to, so we're confident that when we're sending pieces out, we're like, people will love them. We've done enough of the fitting and understanding of the pieces.
You guys really are the epitome of how to use social media in the right way, and feedback, direct feedback, and not being afraid of not knowing and asking. And you designed, I think, even one of your color ranges, is it right, just from feedback off Instagram?
All of them, actually. So when we launched, every single color has been voted for. So we always out to the audience and we'll say, okay, what color do you guys want next? And then that will go, okay, the most voted for color was like a light blue, for example, which was last year. And then we'd show them like a few options, and then the color that got the most votes we then bring in. So all of our color ranges, like our khaki green, our ocean blue, have all been voted for. And I think for us, it's like, we've done it from the beginning. We've always got people, it's like everyone votes on like what to name the collection. So every single product has been named by the social media audience, and obviously they model our pieces. And I think the color stuff, it's like, it's not just me and Zanna wearing the pieces. So for us, it's like important that the audience also get to feel like they're part of the journey and part of like naming it, choosing it. Because then it's like, they go, oh, I voted for that color and now it's here. So it's like they're kind of more invested in it.
I really love that. I really love that straight consumer feedback and relationship and trust you're building. And it's a really beautiful way of building a business. And do you think that will continue to be something that's important to you as you grow? And is there also any other social media platforms you use or want to use more that you think will be important for growth in a business?
I think in terms of the feedback, I think that will always be something that's really important to us, because it's like, that's what's got our business to where it is now. And that's what's got our business to like, I just feel like that we've got such a good connection with our audience. And I feel like that's like gold dust to have audience members who really believe in your product, believe in your brand, trust your brand, and like want to be part of it. And like, I think that's what makes you have loyal customers and people who will come back again and again. I think that level of kind of making sure we have communication with the people who follow our brand and showing behind the scenes, getting them to vote, is something that I would never want to lose, no matter like where we grow to. I still feel like that's very important. And there's so many people who message us now, and I think it makes people like cheerlead for your brand more. Like when they see something happen, like when we got on the Forbes list, people were like, I followed you since the first day, I'm so proud of you girls. And I think it just makes people feel like they're on that journey with you. And I feel like it's so great to have as a brand, you know?
I'm sure a lot of your success, I mean, obviously having a platform before you launched your product, you guys obviously used the fact you had a platform already on social media. And what do you think are a few tips you could give to people who are just trying to build a platform to get an audience to one day maybe then be able to build their own business off it? What tips would you give to someone that's important in building your social media profile, whether it's a personal one? Just what are the key factors to really gain that trust and relationship?
I think kind of a combination of probably personal and business is probably just like consistent posting. I know everyone says that, but like
Yeah.
posting, but also finding stuff that's like people find interesting, like whether it's on Stay Wild, showing the behind the scenes, showing the kind of different stages, because then people are following a journey. And then, I mean, on mine, I'm a bit rubbish. I'm like, oh yeah, I should post consistently, and then I won't post for like a week. But I think for me, I always want to, whether it's you engaging with your audience, whether it's, I don't know, sharing other small businesses, I always try and do, or sharing business tips, sharing stuff that people will find informative, and there's like almost like a bit more of a purpose behind what you're posting, whether it's, I don't know, recipes or fitness workouts. Like there's something that people, like when they come to your page, what will they gain from it? I think that's what I try and think when I post.
I'm 100% seeing that with my personal profile. Is like, obviously I have the modeling side of everything, which is just career, but when I post, say, recipes, if I cook something that people think looks good, I get more interaction. When I tiled my wall was actually the most interaction I've ever got on a story, and I was like, this is so interesting. But it also just shows you how much people want to see authenticity, and also, just like you say, tips and tricks into different life hacks. It doesn't all just have to be business, so it can be a nice mixture.
I think people love a journey as well. That's why, whether it's like DIY in your house, that's a journey. They're coming on that journey with you. Whether it's starting a business, like I think it's so much value in sharing like all of that journey with people, and that's what I learned so much from Stay Wild. Or whether it's, I don't know, you've got a dog and you're showing the journey of it training. Like I think it's just nice for people, like how I personally, all the people I follow, I love when I know I'm seeing them do up their kitchen, or I'm seeing someone who I follow who has an amazing business, and they'll talk about the ups and downs, and like they'll share key learnings. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting, and I'll save that post. So I think, yeah, it's consistently posting. Yeah, it's nice to have a beautiful feed, but also, I suppose, bringing something like, I'm sure you inspire people to tile their wall. You know, people love DIY.
They really do. They really do. I was like, wow, I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
To do more DIY. But no, definitely during lockdown. But it's interesting because that leads us on to how I actually was following By Glaze before I knew it was going to be jewelry, before you said, I think it was, because you didn't straight away say it was going to be a jewelry line. And what I loved was you were using beautiful imagery, which was just aesthetically pleasing, with really amazing stories of your journey from Stay Wild and what it takes to start in starting up a business. And I really love that, and it would be amazing to see more of that out there, but there's not so much out there. And that was a really beautiful way of starting a brand. Did you have that plan, or did you just have By Glaze and you didn't know where it was going, and then you went into sustainable jewelry?
I think I knew I wanted to set up the jewelry brand. I knew that, but then I was like, I know it's a little bit of a way off. And I was like, if I could take one thing I learned from Stay Wild, would be take people on the journey from the very beginning. And the thing that I got asked about most on my page was like business tips, where to start, how to come up with a name, how to do this, like fulfillment, how do you do that? And all that stuff is great, but I'm like, not everyone would have found that interesting. So for me, I was like, it'd be really nice to have a place which was like informative and showed the whole journey. So I knew that when I wanted to start By Glaze, I was like, I didn't want to just start and be like, I've launched a new business, which is completely valid and I think can be very successful, but I've always loved telling the story. And I think that's what I learned from Stay Wild, was like the behind the scenes and the story and the journey and the ups and the downs, what people really related to. So I was like, if I'm going to start a new business, I want to be able to do that again, like take people on the journey and then make them feel like, and also be able to share informative stuff. Like I've learned so much from Stay Wild, and I'm in no way saying I'm an expert. I still very much feel like I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, but I was like, there's probably a lot of useful things I've learned or mistakes I've made, you know, with Stay Wild, and being able to share those. I share it on my personal page, but also being able to, it's almost like I wanted to have like a place which like gave as much tips and advice on like people starting a business. And it was almost like you could save the post and you go, oh, that's really interesting about, I don't know, fulfillment centers, or that's interesting about the steps to launch a website. Because when we launched Stay Wild, we were like, I don't know any of the humans behind half these brands that I follow. You don't really see behind the scenes. And like, I think it's quite refreshing. And I think more and more so people want to see that. They want to see who's behind that brand, or they want to see, like, they don't purely want to see perfection. They want to see the journey. They want to see, I think, as social media is growing, I think so many more brands are kind of opening up to showing the different sides. And I remember I always go back to, there's Eva Chen at Instagram is fantastic. And we met her ages ago at Fashion Week, and she was like, so many brands just think you have to show the perfect, beautiful feed. And she was just like, the brands that I see who do the best on social media are the ones that show the kind of like the really not so glamorous behind the scenes of it, of like piles of boxes of just like being like, oh my gosh, I've been packing for like 10 hours, and like taking people on that journey. And I think it was something we were doing anyway, but it kind of like stamped in my mind that people want to see all of that. And yes, aesthetic images, and that's something I love with Stay Wild. I love creating the beautiful images, but I think just having that relatability and that human side of things.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it with By Glaze as well. And also I just was like, I have no idea when I'm going to launch this business, or if I'm ever going to launch this business. So I'll share the journey and like the sides of it. And also then it's nice because people get to see it evolve. They'll be like I decided to do ceramics as part of it with my mum.
Yeah.
That wasn't the original idea. It just kind of came into it. But then people got to see it when I was like, oh, I think I've got an idea, or here's the first sample. What do you think? And like just getting people involved and getting feedback is so useful.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that, because it's definitely something that me and Vince have definitely spoken about, and something coming from a background of 10 years being a model where everything's perfected and you only see that perfect image. It was definitely a scary journey for me, being more open to showing like, hey, it's just two of us here starting a business and we don't know what we're doing and we're having to learn, and it's scary, and maybe everything's not perfect at the beginning and we're going to keep learning. And I was like, but that's not what you see with brands that are cool out there. You just kind of see this like perfect brand that just pops up and it's professional. But I actually really agree with you, and I think I relate so much more now, and I think so many people do too, to that journey and that story. And it's relatable and also informative, because there's so many people out there that are going to want to do something and they don't even know where to look. So I really love that. And another piece of advice I wanted to get from you was, so you are a co-founder with Zanna, as you've spoken about, and that I know comes with a lot of ups and downs of maybe create differences or learning how to work together. And what advice would you give in someone who wants to set out on the adventure of being a co-founder?
I think being a co-founder has so many good points, but obviously then when there's two of you, there are, like, me and Zanna had the most amazing few years, but there have been so many ups and downs. We always say it's like being married, like, we're like, you're my work, wife, and sometimes I hate you and sometimes we argue. And I think, but what's great is we bounce ideas of each other. And I think for us, it's been like communication has definitely been good. And also I think what was really good about me and Zanna is we have different skill sets. And I think if you're looking for a co-founder or you're going into a business with someone else, I think it's quite good to have someone who has different skills to you, because otherwise you'll both want to do the same jobs, and then the stuff you're both not good at, you just want to like push to the side. Like, so the stuff that I'm good at, Zanna might not necessarily be as strong at, and the stuff that Zanna is really strong at, I'm not as strong at. And then it means that we can kind of bounce ideas off each other, and we have different roles within the business. Like if we both wanted to do, like I do a bit more of the creative direction side of things, and it's like if there was two of you who just wanted to do that, I think you could end up butting heads and arguing, because you're both trying to like control that area. And the stuff that Zanna's good at, I'm like, you own that and you're so fantastic at it. I don't need to do that because that's not my area, and I'll work on this. So I think having different skills, you like complement each other well. And I think that has definitely helped. But I think communication, like I think there is a lot of kind of, but like running a business can be seen to be quite glamorous, but like it is really tough work. And you'll have some weeks where you're like, the amount of times that me and Zanna were like, oh my gosh, what have we done? Why have we done this? This is awful. This was the worst idea ever. And I think it's like knowing that you're going to have ups and downs and like sticking it out and making sure you communicate with each other. Like if one of you's having a week when you're like, I'm finding this all a bit much, or I'm really stressed out, being able to talk to the other person and be like, look, could you take on a little bit more of this, because I'm just finding it a little bit hard this week. And I think that's a good thing about having a co-founder. You're not in it alone. And I think I would have found it 10 times scarier and more overwhelming if I had done it all by myself, because it was so new and it was just so mental when we launched. I think I would have been like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Having someone to kind of be like, talk to and have, you're sharing that experience together. But yeah, there are loads of ups and downs, and it is tough running a business. And like, there are definite, it's like roller coaster. It's like you'll have like the most amazing highs and have the best week ever, but then you'll have like an absolute crash and it will be awful. So I think it's knowing that you're going to be on that journey together and just making sure you communicate a lot with each other, I think.
Definitely. Communication is key. I've definitely learned that, having a relationship and a business where you literally are living together. But also I really like how you made the point of knowing your different skill sets, because I think that's something I've learned as well, is just finding where you fit into the business and where you're going to excel, and trusting the other person in that place. And I think it's also a lot of confidence building then in yourself. It's something I've had to learn, like, oh, my area is this, and I should be confident that I know what I'm doing and that I don't need to constantly. But then you have someone you can bounce the ideas off. So it is a really beautiful relationship, but it definitely takes time. And I definitely think communication is number one in that area. And one question.
Sorry, if you can hear any noise in the past, my dog has just come in and he's just taken like the biggest drink. So you'll have like in the background.
Fine. Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
He basically looks like a little fox. He's a rescue, but we're not really sure. Maybe a Coconi cross spaniel. He's like a little ginger fox-like creature. Very cute.
Very cute. I love dogs. I wanted to ask you about your Forbes 30 under 30, which has just recently been announced. What was that journey to that? Was it a surprise? Was it something you knew was coming? And how does it feel?
Yeah, that. So they emailed us a while ago, basically being like, we think you guys could be good contenders for the list. And we were like, what? Oh, are you sure? And then they basically sent, it's an application form which they sent to us. So they reached out and said, we'll need a bit more information about your kind of goals, your past year in your business. They wanted to know about finances. They wanted to know, like, it was a hardcore, like, you had to fill out so much. And there was lots of like questions about where do you see the future? Also lots about the kind of pandemic and how your business has adapted. And we just thought, and I remember having the conversation with Zanna, I was like, well, there's 100% no way we're going to get on it. Like, I've always just associated the list with just like such huge businesses with like the craziest profits and like turning over like 500 million pounds. And I was like, we're not going to get on that list. Like, we're not big enough. It's not going to happen. And Zanna was like, what can we lose? Like, let's just apply. Like, let's just fill it in. They've approached us. Like, surely that means something. Let's just fill it in and just go in open-minded. So filled all the stuff in and then I kind of forgot about it. And then they sent an email saying, oh, the list will get announced. It was like 6 a.m. this time. So it was like whatever time in New York, whatever that time difference is. And I remember seeing that email and then I kind of got really nervous and I was like, it's fine. You know what? Like, we know, like, you're not going to get on it. But obviously I am 29. So you can only apply for it if you're under 30. So like, oh, it's the last year. I'm not going to get on it, but it's cool. Like, don't worry about it. There's obviously, it's not the be all and end all at all. And like, you can achieve that at any age. But I was like, it would be nice if I could get on it at the same time. And then really randomly, like, our dog sleeps through the night every night. But that particular morning, he started scratching at the door, like needing a wee at 5:30. And then I checked my phone and I was like, oh, I might get up because, you know, it comes out at 6.
Yeah.
So I took a walk, came back, and I think they said you'll get an email, and it was turns at 6 a.m. and I didn't get an email, and I was like, oh, fine, not on it.
Yeah.
So then I was like, I'll find the list. I wonder who's on it. I'm just curious to see who's on it. And then it was my face, mine and Zanna's face. I was like, oh, I was so shocked, and then I burst into tears. And then I sent a screenshot to Zanna of it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, oh, like literally we just basically were sending each other pictures of our faces, like crying. I think obviously it has been a really tough few years of business. Like it's been really intense, so fast paced, and I think it's been like such an up and down journey. And I think although it shouldn't be like validation, it kind of was a bit like, you know, all that hard work,
No.
you know, it is worth something. And like it's such an amazing thing to be able to say that your business is on.
Yeah.
And it just felt so surreal. And then I was literally like shaking. I called my mum at like 6 a.m. and she was like, why are you ringing me at 6 a.m.? It's like, I'm on Forbes.
You want to answer this one? And I guess it's too early to say, but you haven't, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be an impact, as you say, just having that validation. There's going to be an impact for your business where it's going to be, I mean, I just think it's a thing like Selfridges. It's just going to be a real great milestone and credibility to your business, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like we've had some lovely emails and lots of people congratulating us and stuff, and now we'll just see.
That's enough for now, yeah.
Yeah,
it's so exciting. Congratulations. Thank you. You're gonna come join the podcast.
You're gonna come say hello.
Oh my goodness! Hello. What's his name?
Bosco.
Hello, Bosco. You can be here for the last question, Bosco. And what I want to ask finally, is there any piece of advice you would give to someone who is wanting to start up a business?
I think one really good bit of advice we got was don't wait until everything's perfect until you launch, because I think you can end up just waiting for years and years, and then the kind of moment passes. And I think it's about, like, if you have an idea, just run with it, jump in at the deep end, and like kind of learn as you go. And actually that will be when you make the best decisions and when you learn the most. Never get your business perfect. Like our business is far from perfect. No, I don't think there is such a thing as perfection. I think also like the amount of people who I've spoken to who've been like, I've wanted to start this business for 5 years. I've been working on it for ages, but I feel like it's not quite ready. I'm scared to start it. I'm scared to put it out there. And I'm just like, just put it out there. Like that's the best thing. Like we went out with Stay Wild, and I'm sure we were so far off being ready to launch, but actually the feedback, like we got feedback from our audience, we learned, we probably made a lot of mistakes, and actually that's made our business to where it is now. And like you can kind of ask those questions and like get people's opinions and thoughts, and it helps your business kind of grow to where it is, you know.
100%. I love that. Thank you so much. I have really loved talking to you, and I think we've all learned a lot. And congratulations, and keep doing what you're doing. It's going to be exciting to see where you guys will go.
Thank you, and I hope everything goes really well with you guys. I'm very excited. I'm going to get myself a little cup.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bosco.